I was jolted awake by a frantic pounding on my front door. Not the casual kind of knocking you get when a neighbor wants to borrow some sugar. No, this was the kind that made you wonder if the sky was falling. Boomer, my old hound, was already at full alert, barking like the world was ending. Whoever was behind that door was about to get an earful. I swung my legs over the bed, shoved my feet into a pair of worn boots, and trudged to the door, figuring it had to be some kind of farm emergency. Maybe a neighbor's cows got loose again. I wasn't prepared for what I found when I yanked the door open. Two uniformed deputies stood on my porch, their hands resting a little too close to their sidearms for comfort. And behind them, a gleaming white SUV with the emblem of the Oak Hollow Homeowners Association stamped on the side. The thing practically shone like some chariot of suburban doom. Leaning against the hood of the SUV was Miranda Caldwell, arms crossed and lips tugged into a smug grin that made my stomach twist. Miranda was the self-appointed queen of Oak Hollow, a woman who believed rules were etched in stone by her own hand. "Mr. Cole Hansen," one of the officers asked. He was older, all jaw and wrinkles, wearing a badge that read Deputy Franklin. His partner, a younger man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, kept glancing around like he expected a wild animal to leap out from the barn at any moment. "Depends," I replied, crossing my arms and leaning against the doorframe. "Who's asking?" "Deputy Franklin, County Sheriff's Department. We've received a formal complaint regarding illegal structures and unauthorized livestock on your property." I blinked at him, then let out a long, hearty laugh, the kind that rattles windows. Deputy Franklin shifted uncomfortably. Miranda's smug smile faltered, then tightened again. "Illegal structures," I said, wiping a tear from the corner of my eye. "Deputy, this barn was standing here back when your granddaddy was chasing chickens out of cornfield. And last time I checked, having cows and chickens wasn't exactly outlawed." Miranda marched forward, waving a thick packet of papers like they were holy scripture. "This property," she announced, "is under the jurisdiction of the Oak Hollow Homeowners Association. You are in clear violation of our community standards. That barn is an eyesore, and your animals are a public nuisance." I tilted my head, feigning deep thought. "Noise pollution on a farm," I said. "Shocking. Next, you'll tell me the rooster crowing at dawn is an act of terrorism." The younger deputy smothered grin. Franklin stayed stone-faced. "Sir, we need to verify ownership and jurisdiction. Do you have documentation?" I sighed, pushing the door open wider. "Come on in." I fetched the old deed from my office, thick, dusty, and bound in cracked leather, and slapped it on the table. "Here it is," I said. "Hansen Acres. Private property. Not part of Oak Hollow. Never was. Never will be." Franklin studied the deed, while Miranda hovered over him like a vulture waiting for something to die. After a few tense moments, he nodded. "It checks out. Mr. Hansen's property is not within HOA jurisdiction." Miranda's jaw dropped open, then snapped shut, only to drop open again like a fish out of water. But he's ruining the aesthetic of a neighborhood," she shrieked. "Not our concern," Franklin replied. "Unless you have a court order, there's nothing we can do." Miranda turned a shade of red I was pretty sure wasn't healthy. She sputtered something about community values before storming back to her SUV and peeling out, kicking up a cloud of dust in her wake. The deputies trailed behind her, leaving me on my porch shaking my head. I thought that would be the end of it. Just another busybody trying to flex her paper-thin authority. But I underestimated Miranda Caldwell. The escalation. The next morning, I found a letter nailed to my fence post. A formal notice on Oak Hollow HOA letterhead, claiming I was in violation of their community regulations. I tore it down, tossed it in the wood stove, and went about my day. But Miranda wasn't done. Over the next week, I received a deluge of letters, each one more aggressive than the last. Threats of fines, legal action, and even the seizure of my land. It became a daily routine. Grab the mail, skim the threats, burn them. And then came the black SUV. I spotted it one evening idling at the edge of my property line. Two men in matching uniforms, emblazoned with the HOA logo, loitered by the fence, whispering and pointing at my barn. I grabbed my hat, strolled over, and gave them my best get off my land glare. "Mr. Hanson," one of them said, clipboard in hand. "We're with the Oak Hollow HOA enforcement team. We're here to conduct an inspection." I crossed my arms. "You're not stepping a foot onto my land. Get back in your car and leave." "We have the authority," the other insisted. I let out a slow whistle. Behind me, my bulls, massive creatures named Thunder and Brick, began to stir. Their hooves thudded against the ground like distant thunder. The two men glanced nervously at the animals and backed toward their SUV. "We'll be in touch," one stammered before they jumped inside and sped away. The breaking point. A few days later, I was mending a fence when I heard sirens. Not just one car this time. It was a convoy. 3 sheriff cruisers, lights flashing, and Sheriff Tom McAllister himself climbing out of the lead vehicle. "What now?" I muttered. "Cole," McAllister said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "We've received multiple complaints about you running an illegal farming operation." I raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, Miranda." He sighed. "Bingo." I led him around the property, explaining everything. The fake enforcement goons, the letters, the threats. He listened, nodding occasionally. "You know this is nonsense," he said finally. "But I've got to follow up on complaints." "What can I do?" I asked. McAllister gave me a wry smile. "If they trespass, you could defend your land. Just don't go overboard." "What's overboard, Sheriff?" I asked with a grin. I was already forming a plan. The bull tactic. The next morning, sure enough, Miranda was back. This time with reinforcements. 5 men, 2 of them lugging bolt cutters. They lined up at the fence like they owned the place. Miranda gave the signal. The cutters approached the fence. I whistled. Thunder and Brick charged. I didn't intend for them to hurt anyone. But when a pair of 2,000-pound bulls charge, nobody sticks around to see if they're friendly. The cutters dropped their tools and ran. Miranda screamed, her clipboard flying as she scrambled back to her SUV. Her minions followed, tripping over each other in their desperation. I let the bulls settle and patted their thick necks. Miranda's crew gathered what they could and fled. One guy glared at me and yelled, "You could have killed us." "Private property," I replied. "Means stay the hell off." The lawsuit. For a few days, things were quiet. Too quiet. Then came the certified letter. A lawsuit. Claims of reckless endangerment, property devaluation, and emotional distress. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Emotional distress? Miranda should have thought about that before playing cowboy. But the lawsuit gave me an opening. I spent a week gathering intel. County records. Complaints from other residents. Turns out Miranda had been skimming HOA fees for years. Community improvements? There weren't any. Permits? Missing. Money? Gone. Court day. 2 weeks later, we faced off in court. Miranda in a designer suit, her lawyer slick and smug. Me in my best jeans and boots. Her lawyer painted me as a wild-eyed farmer unleashing beasts on innocent people. I let him talk. When it was my turn, I presented my deed. Sheriff McAllister's statement. And then I dropped the bombshell, evidence of Miranda's fraud. The judge was not amused. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said, "not only are you wasting this court's time, but you're facing charges for fraud and embezzlement." Miranda stammered, but the case was dismissed on the spot. The fallout. The sheriff's office launched an investigation. The HOA collapsed within a month. Miranda resigned in disgrace and put her house up for sale. And then the video surfaced. A neighbor had filmed the entire bull incident, uploaded it online, added dramatic music. The clip went viral. News stations ran it on repeat. Memes exploded across the internet. "You don't mess with a farmer," the captions read. "The bulls know best." The celebration. To celebrate, I hosted a barbecue. The whole town came out, except Miranda and her cronies. Kids played near the fence, warily eyeing the bulls. Sheriff McAllister showed up with a case of beer. "You really had to go the bull route?" he said, laughing. I shrugged. They acted like they owned the place. Figured I'd show them who's really in charge. He chuckled. "Nobody's going to forget that lesson." Epilogue. The sun set over Hanson Acres, the land quiet and peaceful once again. Miranda Caldwell had become a punchline. Oak Hollow HOA was a cautionary tale. And my biggest bull? Well, I renamed him Miranda, because some lessons need to stick.